Welcome to Life-Changing Challengers, the podcast where passion meets purpose. I'm Brad Minus, your host, guiding you through stories of transformation and triumph, from endurance feats to overcoming adversity. Our guests defy the limits and inspire action. Ready to ignite your desire and incinerate your barriers? Join us. Your journey to the extraordinary begins now. And welcome back to Life-Changing Challengers. My name is Brad Minus, and hopefully you already know that by all the other episodes that you've listened to. I am really lucky to have Lynn Weimar with me today. She's an author, weight loss coach. She's also a nurse and has a master's of nursing as well. So Lynn, welcome. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Brad. Thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, I'm thrilled because, as you'll find out pretty soon, we have a lot in common. So I'm really excited about that. Lynn, I asked the same thing to everybody. I'd just like to, if you can, tell us about your childhood, where you were born, where you were raised, what was a compliment to your family, what was the environment like while you were growing up, and give us this little insight.
I was born and raised in the Seattle, Washington area, and I have one brother and one sister. I felt like my family was pretty stable, and I felt fairly secure, but I had this situation of Glenn was loved, Terry was ignored, and Greg was hated. And I was the oldest, so I felt like my childhood was pretty good. And I knew I needed to walk on eggshells around my mom, but I didn't see it fully from my brother's perspective or even my sister's perspective. And so it just hearing that and connecting with that as an adult, it colors my view of my childhood and my growing up. And I was very close to my dad, but it was just something that I look back on with mixed emotions. So yeah. I'll leave it at that.
Hindsight's kind of 20/20 when we start looking with our adult eyes, right?
Yeah.
So you were in Seattle, so you went to high school. Were you a jock? Were you one of the cheerleaders? Were you one of the popular kids?
I was not one of the popular kids. I was very quiet, wallflower, wanted to be invisible and just blend into the background. And that's pretty much what I did.
Extracurriculars? No.
I tried track a couple of times, and I knew I was slow. I did it once in high school and once in college, and I would overtrain and get injured. And my injury of choice was shin splints, and it was because I was very tall. And one of the coaches told me later that it was because the muscles hadn't caught up with the bone. So it would tend to separate and cause me a lot of pain and cut short my hopes of being a runner. I never thought I would be not professional, but competent runner, a fast runner or anything like that. I just wanted to run. I just enjoyed that activity. So that was pretty much, it never lasted long. The one time I tried it in high school and the one time I tried it in college, the same thing happened both times, and I dropped out. That's not a very good pedigree there, but that's what happened.
Reaction from a coach. But now that you've had this training in the human body, and as we just said about looking back with adult eyes, do you think he was right? Do you think that was a pretty good diagnosis?
Of the muscles and the bones?
Yeah.
No, it was shin splints happen to beginner runners.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're so gung-ho. You just need time. Your body needs time to adapt and adjust. And so I would say the flaw in the system was, okay, go run. Just go run 5 miles. Go run 10 miles out on the pavement. And that's how you build up. And if you want to keep up and not be the slowest one, which I didn't particularly want to be the slowest one. I figured I would be. But I'll tell you what, really, the shin splints were excruciatingly painful. But here's what was more painful for me was the track coach was also the math teacher. And one day we had to run, we called them 880s back then, 880 yards. We had to run something like 880s after a pretty big warm up. And I didn't know how I was going to be able to do that. That seemed really hard to me. So I ran my 880s, and my last one was exactly 4 minutes, 4:00. And so we all meet in this classroom, maybe the next day or that day, I don't remember. The coach has it on an overhead projector. He has all of our times for all of our 880s. For the boys and girls were together because it was Title IX. And he had all of these numbers up there. Guess who had the only one that had a 4 in front of it? It was me. I was the slowest one. Now I think, oh, I wish I could do 800 meters in 4 minutes. That would be great. As my slowest 800. But one of the jock guys in the classroom there, really good runner, looks up at that overhead projector screen and says, 4 minutes? Who ran it in 4 minutes? And I could have just fell through the floor. I was devastated. And that was my last day of track. I was putting up with the shin splint pain up until that point. And then I never looked back until I tried it again in college. But
yeah, kids are cool. We were just, and I look back at it now, and so I'm a high school cross country and track coach. Yeah, the kids, they're better than they were when I was a kid. But of course, I coach at a private school, not a public school. But they still can be, even when they think they're just kidding around, they could still be pretty cruel. So yeah, I feel bad about that. But so, did you go to college right out of high school? Did you just graduate?
I did. I majored in English, and I would have maybe gone toward a healthcare career, but I considered myself to be very bad in math and science. So that's what I did.
You tried track in college. That didn't work. You got through college, graduated. Then what happens to Lynn?
Oh, I got married before English degree, which I had been told anytime anyone would ask me what I was majoring in college and I said English, they would say, oh, you're going for your MRS degree. Actually, that was not my intention, but that is what happened. We had 6 kids. We went into Christian ministry.
You had kids? 6?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I homeschooled them up in the mountains of Idaho for the last 20 years of that range.
Okay, we're getting, whoa, hold on. We're getting interesting now. Here it was.
Okay.
She's talking about being a wallflower, and she's got going on, thinking that this is her life's kind of dull, and all of a sudden, whoa, 6 kids, moves to Idaho in the mountains and homeschools. There's got to be some stuff uncovered here. We got to talk. First of all, tell me about the compliment of the kids.
I have the most amazing, brilliant kids. So.
Okay. 3 boys, 3 girls, 4 boys.
5 boys, 1 girl.
5
boys were the mellow ones, and my daughter was known as the wildfire of the family. But she's very precious, very sweet, very compassionate.
So that by you saying that you got married prior to this, I'm thinking college sweetheart.
I met him in college. Yes.
All right. Excellent. Listen, you did, and you said Christian ministry, so that's great. So yeah, no, that's fabulous. We need more of that. I wish we could. It's one of those things that I believe is things that we're missing here in this environment that we're in right now is good nuclear families that really take pride in either serving God or serving some other cause.
Yeah,
Yep.
I will say that I had my ideals of what it was going to be. And I had all my dreams and just this godly Christian family, and we're homeschooling and we're raising kids to reach their full potential and all of these kinds of things. But unfortunately, it ended up being all about appearances and reputation, because we weren't like, my husband was not a pastor per se, but it was a faith support ministry. And he had the idea that in order for God to provide for us, we needed to be perfect. And so things looked very different at home than they did when we all went to church on Sunday. That it made it a very difficult environment, I would say.
All right. Can you expound a little bit on that, just so we get an idea of what's, when you step into or when you step out of this, where you were going, what you're coming from? If you don't want to, that's fine.
No, I'm happy to share it all. I'm
No.
sure what you're asking, but...
So you had a public persona and a private persona, and the public persona was perfect. It was this perfect Christian family.
Right.
What was going on? Because you mentioned that it was very different within the confines of your home.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. So a lot of lengthy lectures that would be very cutting to a child's psyche.
Mm.
And me being a more withdrawn type of person, not liking conflict, I was more closed off in myself. I'd see a lecture coming or even a discussion, and I would retreat. I would leave because I didn't want to hear it. I got to the point where I knew I couldn't do anything about it. I would say, one time I said to my husband, I don't believe that you should be disciplining the children in anger, is what I said. And he says, I disagree. And it was very much emotion driven, which was so different than my ideal of how to raise children. And they were always in trouble. They were always getting spanked or scolded or for very minor things. And the religion was used against us. I will include myself in with the children. If one of the children expressed an interest in spiritual things, which was of course expected of us, it would be, and then there's some infraction. You said you wanted to follow God. You said, and it would be hung over our heads. And I went very underground in my relationship with God. It was like, I don't even want to go there. And so it was very much the opposite of what I had envisioned a Christian marriage to be. And
it sounds like he weaponized religion to cause like emotional abuse.
That is what it was. And I went into protection mode, trying to protect them as much as I could and trying to protect myself as much as I could. And my daughter, I hope I can even say this, she loved and loves her brothers so much. And one of them getting in trouble for her was worse than herself getting in trouble. And she was a fireball, and she was not afraid of standing up to him, to my husband, to her father. And I just knew every time, I just knew it was going to get ugly. because he was not going to back down, but she was going to tell it like it is. And it was scary. It was scary. Yeah. Yeah. I have to let her know that she was right. She did the right thing.
So,
for it.
Yeah. What was her name again? I'm sorry.
Her name is Megan.
Megan. So where did Megan lie in the span of 6?
Third. She's third.
She's third.
Yeah.
Okay. So she's middle child. So she's got, I go Megan, between having younger brothers and older brothers. Yeah. She's got both sides that she wanted to protect. Yeah. Good for her.
Yeah.
But okay.
So this story's turning out a little different than you first expected when I said.
I knew something had to happen. So just reading your profile, I knew something had to happen before you said that you were saying that at this age, you ended up finding yourself as a single mom, which is what we're going to get to in just a second. I knew that there was something between the lines there that I wanted to uncover, just because I know that there's people out there, and we do this because we want to help people that were in that same situation or might be in that same situation right now. And now you just talked about that, which is where I want to go, because I want people to know and us to know. And I'm curious myself, is what happened for you to get out of that? Was that something that you initiated or?
Yeah, I actually encouraged my older kids to leave home at younger ages than I normally would have. And so my oldest went to college at age 17. My next one joined the military at age 18. And then Megan was 17. Nathan was actually 15.
He left home at 15?
He went because we lived out in the mountains, and he was going to college. He started college at age 15.
Wow.
And so his older siblings had a house they were renting a house near the college there in Boise. And so I let him go. And maybe it was when he was 16 that he did that. I don't know. But he started college at 15.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just didn't like them being in that environment. And so I know a lot of people who were raising their eyebrows and saying, why are these kids leaving home so early? And I wanted to facilitate that. And I don't know if it was the right thing, but
your public persona was perfect. Yeah, your public persona, you were perfect. Of course, right. To everybody else, they're thinking, why are they leaving home so early if they're such this perfect Christian loving family? Why does she want to kick them out so fast?
And so I had my 2 youngest sons still at home, and they were 14 and 17 at the time. And I had people saying to me, because I was starting to share more what I was going through as a wife, and they were saying, when are you going to leave? At what point are you going to be done being treated like this? And I laid out some criteria for myself when he starts doing this thing that he used to do, because we've been the gamut of working through this. If he starts yelling at the younger kids the way he used to treat the older kids, or if he starts treating me the way he used to treat the older kids, and he starts calling me names and yelling at me, I won't be able to handle that. I will need to leave. And
go ahead. I have a question, and I'd like you to take just a step outside of yourself just for a second. And it's just something I'm so curious about. Okay. And again, you want to answer? Not a big deal.
Oh no.
So in that environment, okay, so you know that you're basically being emotionally abused. You're being name called and all that. But you married this guy. You married him for a reason. There had to be some point, if not still, and that's my question, if you still love this person, do you look past all this going, wait a second, that's still the man I love. I still love him. What I don't love is his actions. Do you separate that? Or was there a point where I'm in this for the kids. I want to make sure the kids are safe. And this is the only way that I know how.
That was pretty much it. To be treated the way we were treated for so many years and did not want to despise him. That was important to me. But I was just surviving. I was really just surviving. And I reached a point where all of the things I could think of to try to heal the marriage, I had done. I had tried them all. And every single time, it only served to make the situation worse for me. Because in order to do something about it, I would have to step forward and actually say my point of view of what was happening. And that was extremely scary for me. And I was punished for it. It was not something that I should be saying. It was very disrespectful, very ungodly. And I was asking for divorce. I was asking for it. And so I felt when I reached a point of, okay, I've done everything. I've tried everything. I've gotten help from other people, advice from other people, and I've tried their advice. I've tried everything, and nothing's working. That's a mild word, that it's just not working. But I wasn't looking for anything for myself. A lot of marriages end because the needs aren't being met, or there's not good communication, or the love has fizzled out, something like that. For me, no. It was not any of those things. I just wanted to survive. I just wanted to hang on and hold it together. That was all I cared about. And I reached a point of hopelessness. Like, things are not going to get better for me. All I have to look forward to is the next 40, 50 years of just hanging on, just trying to fly under the radar, just trying to not be noticed. It wasn't happening. And in fact, my ex-husband saw that we didn't have the kind of marriage that other Christian couples had. And he started accusing me of a lot of things, but of putting up walls against him. And so I could not win. I was in a no-win situation.
When you realized that, was that the turning point where you were just like, hey,
yes, except those things that I alluded to started happening more overtly. And so I woke up one morning, it was the day after Mother's Day, actually. To him, I was still in bed, and he's standing there yelling at me and saying, he didn't actually say, "You are a liar, you are evil," but he's saying, "What you say is lies. What you're doing is evil." And he's yelling this, and I'm going, I just woke up like, what? I don't even know what you're talking about. And I'm laughing now, but I was terrified. I was shaking. And then I thought, after things he went to work and all this, and I thought, okay, this is it. I said that this was the line, and I'm going to leave. And I couldn't do it. I could not make myself do it. And then a couple months later, this same scenario happens again. And then a month later, it happens again. And I couldn't leave. My resolve was growing stronger that I needed to. Finally, so 7 months almost after that first day after Mother's Day thing, I said to my sister, done. I'm just really done. I cannot do this anymore. And she had no idea. She saw the happy Christian family. She didn't like my husband, but she saw this front, and that's all she knew. And so it was a bit of a shock for, she and I went out to coffee when we were actually on vacation with them. And I just said, I just cannot do this anymore. And just a few days later, when we returned home from vacation, I actually fled. We'd gone to church, and I told a friend of mine they were mutual friends, that our kids, the two youngest, were going to go over to their house after church and visit. And so since they were going to be doing that and we were going to be kidless, my husband says, okay, we need to have a date. We're going to have a date. And I knew what a date meant. And I knew that I was done. I wasn't going to put up with, I wasn't going to play the game anymore. And I told this friend, yeah, I am one altercation away from leaving. And he wants to have a date after church. And her eyes got really big because she knew what was happening. And it was just the two of us, and we were in his place of ministry. And he read a couple of chapters from the Bible to me. And you could probably guess what one of the chapters was, Ephesians 5. And he went on and read Ephesians 6 too, so as not to just single out Ephesians 5, about how I should be behaving as a wife, basically, was the idea. And he pulled out a book that he had given me for Christmas on marriage, because he really wanted to work on our marriage. And so we read together the first chapter of this book. And it was about this couple, and the husband was very much like my husband, except that he was also physically abusive. And the big climax of the chapter is the husband picks up the wife and throws her across the room. I don't remember anything else of this chapter of this book, but he asked me what I thought of the chapter. And I said, this is very much how I'm feeling. This is very much how I feel, how the wife was portrayed. And he says, I've never thrown you across the room. And I said, no, you haven't, but this is how I feel I'm being treated. And he says, can you give me some examples, some recent specific examples? And I had almost 30 years of this. I was done trying to give examples. I was done trying to explain. I knew the consequences of that. And I stood up and I said, I can't and I won't. And I opened the door and I walked out the door and I closed the door behind me and I ran down the steps. And we were on a college campus because it was a college ministry. And I just ran. My running skills came into play. I was darting between buildings so that he wouldn't be able to just drive down the street and see me running. And I got to this thing that we call the Green Belt in Boise, Idaho. And I knew then that he would not be chasing me on foot. He knew better than that. And
wait a second. This is 7 months after Mother's Day. This is January in Idaho.
This is January 3rd, 2010.
In Idaho, and you're running outside. It's got to be 20 below.
It wasn't 20 below. No, it wasn't that bad. fortunately, I had my coat on. I probably never even took off my coat. I don't know. Because I know I didn't stop and grab my coat. I must have already had it on. I never thought of that. Yeah, I already had my coat on. And I had these refugee friends, people, a family that I had befriended, and they lived just off of the Greenbelt, and I ran to their house, and they took me in, and I was just sobbing. I was so devastated. It was just the hardest day of my life, the hardest thing I ever did. But I just had to do it. And so I basically left with nothing. And my oldest son drove me back home that evening to pick up some things for myself. And my husband, he was furious. He was just furious. And I just didn't even talk to him and just got some stuff and stayed at various friends' houses, various places for about 6 months. And I was working on getting my CNA certification because I had already started the journey of trying to get prereqs to go to nursing school even before I left. And so I was in the midst of that. And so once I finally was able to, I got the CNA thing and got a steady job that I could tolerate as a CNA, that I liked that job actually. And then I was able to take my 2 sons to live with me in an apartment in Boise. So, yeah.
That's tough. That is a tough story to listen to, but it's a show of strength. And yeah, I commend you for getting out of there and then just finding your way. I guess you spending 6 months, I guess the kids call it couch surfing nowadays. So you were able to do that. You had a good support system at least, or
I did.
Semblance of a support system. So you get your CNA, you finally, and in this months, were you able to like legally take care of the marriage?
It still in these very conservative Christian circles, and the pastor and the counselor or therapist that I'm still hoping that me leaving would put enough pressure on this image and this ministry and things like that, that he would want to look and address the problems. But he was very busy making sure that it was all my fault and that everybody agreed with him. That's what he would say if we were together in a counseling setting. Everybody agrees with me. Everybody thinks you should come back home. And I had a few friends, and I would tell them that, and they would just laugh, and they would say, "No, Lynn, and anybody who knows you knows that's not the case."
Yeah, I can imagine. Even people that are deep into their faith and are very. The only synonym that I can use right now that's coming to my head is very Handmaid's Tale-ish. I don't know if you saw that series or not, which is basically a cult, but that are just that doubt. Even we'll see as they look, they'll still see that.
Yeah, I'm bear to watch stuff like that.
No, I don't blame you.
I just
don't even. Yeah, I would definitely suggest don't watch that. All right, so let's move on. Let's get out of this. Let's move on because you're away. You got your 2 kids. All the other kids are safe and sound, living, going to school. They're thriving. And you said that you had a 17-year-old who was with you. So that son was pretty much on his way to school too, or did he go a different direction? Or
he actually still lives with me to this day. Okay. And then the 14-year-old has gotten into, they both are heavily into the tech world. Both very brilliant and very functional adults.
Yeah. I gotta tell you, so the way that I make money, real money, is I'm in the tech world as well. And I have been for about a little over 22 years. And I gotta tell you, some of the people that I worked for and worked with, I worked with this one guy who, if big company, like Fortune 500 company. And if they would have lost this kid, there was going to be a lot of painful cybersecurity stuff going on that they would never be able to manage on their own.
Right,
Turns out, never graduated high school.
Yeah.
And he did most of his learning just by books and trial and error and the whole bit. And if they would have lost him, out of all of these other execs that have got like double and triple degrees and they got doctorates and the whole bit, this is the kid that basically was keeping 60 different facilities from being hacked. So yeah. I got nothing against, and I worked with a bunch of people that didn't have degrees in tech that were big into the tech industry. So more power to them. More power to them. All right. So you've started your you got your CNA, and did you start nursing school like right away? Did it take a little bit?
Let's see. I was admitted to nursing school in fall of 2010, I believe. And yeah. Oh, and the divorce was actually final 2 years later. I waited 2 years.
Okay.
And I will say that was also a very difficult thing because it went against what I felt were my values. I just came to realize, and I'll just throw this out for anybody who's in this world, the thing that really, nobody taught me this, I just all of a sudden felt it in my being, that Jesus doesn't say, woe to you, tax collectors, or woe to you who get a divorce, woe to you who get angry. He says, woe to you, religious leaders. And that, when I realized that, it was like, I'm not the one that killed this marriage. And there's compassion for me. It was hard. It went so much against everything that I had held dear. But I'm not the one that did it. And it was this guise of religiosity that did it. And what finally helped me to cross that line and seek the divorce was that he hadn't moved one single inch in my direction in 2 years, because he would have to admit that he was wrong about something, and that would mar his reputation. And therefore, the only thing that ever mattered to him, from my perspective, was his reputation, his ministry. And
isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing how far some people will go to keep up a guise? You say that, yeah. So he won't admit that he was wrong ever, and doesn't realize it, but not even, so we have this public persona and this private persona. That public persona can remain constant, but if he was able to say that in the public side, in his private life, sit there and say, hey, listen, I was wrong, blah, blah, blah. Let me make it up to you, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even then, if he would have just done it at that point. So he marred both sides. But that's what it sounds like to me. I'm just giving you what I'm getting from you.
Yeah. There was one day right after I left, there was one letter I got from him that said, things will be different. You should come back because things will be different. But then he completely did an about face, realizing that incriminated him, just that statement. He had to make sure that nothing was ever different. Which, okay, that's fine. Fine. Now I'm glad. Now I'm glad that things got to the point where I had to leave. I knew I had to leave, because I could have just stayed and could have just kept surviving and just hanging on and just taking it all. And now I have this amazing, beautiful, incredible life. And I get to live my life, and I get to love my life, and I get to talk.
Yeah.
without being afraid of being in trouble for whatever I say.
And
it's incredible to me. It's just that we probably take the whole episode talking about the negative and the hard story, but I'm so grateful to be in this place now. And it gives me so much compassion for women who are stuck, I don't even talk about the marriage thing so much, but they're stuck in their own mind, in their own circumstances, and their own habit patterns, and their own addictions, and all those things. And I just so want people to be free, to be able to live their life and find that life, even if they're over 50, because it all happened for me after 50. When in my late 40s, I thought my life was over. I really believed that my life was over. And no, actually, it was just starting. That was like being in the little cocoon and the butterfly came out.
And yes, it did. All right. So some of the fun stuff. So at 50 years old and you walk into your first nursing class, what did that feel like?
Fortunately, it was a community college. And so there were more adult learners. I was one of the oldest in my nursing class, but probably not the only older person. There were a couple of us. But I was very much... It's weird. I did this time warp thing where that high school student who just wanted to fade into the background and hide and just be quiet and just do her work was there again. 30 years later, there she was, being ignored and being treated the way I had been treated in high school. And this was a major revelation to me because it made me see this is what I'm projecting out, and people are treating me according to what's coming out of me. They don't know me from anybody, right? I don't have this history of having gone through elementary and junior high and high school with them. They don't know me. But here I am living this all over again. And that was crazy to me that, okay, I'm the one that did that all along. I didn't have to be that. Major revolution. Right? Okay.
When you were, yeah, exactly.
I learned this at 50 years old.
It runs around the same route that I've been trying to get across in a different platform, is you realizing that, hey, you know what? I'm getting ignored because I'm putting out into the world that I want to step back.
Please ignore me.
Away. Yeah. You're literally saying, please ignore me. It's the same thing. Right now, what's been going on over the last 3-4 years? What is the biggest saying that's been going around on socials and in the papers and all that? Oh, that's offensive. That's one of the biggest lines right now. That's offensive. And I've been preaching for the last 3 years. I've been like, you know what? Offense is in the eye of the offended.
Mm-hmm.
So 95% of the times, and I'm using this as an example, but 95% of the things that people say are not meant to be offensive. They're putting something out, they're trying to make a point, and a little tiny piece of that, someone decides to pick out, oh, right, that's offensive the way you said that. Now we're all on eggshells. Now we can't communicate. Anyway, but offense being in the eye of the offended is what's going on with you that you're taking offense to that? What's going on inside of you that you're taking offense?
Exactly.
That's something. That person, you're being offended, not because of that person that's saying that, it's because of something going on inside of you. And it's the same, literally it's the same thing. You went in, you portrayed that, okay, I don't want to, I want to be left alone. So they did. because that was something inside of you that you now realized. And the same thing with this other thing, whereas, hey, before you start telling people that you're offended, you better figure out why you're offended, because most likely you should be looking in the mirror if you want to find that answer.
Exactly. Yeah. And I've used the analogy of it's like a radio receiver. If your dial is turned off, old-fashioned radio is what's in my mind. If it's turned off, there's nothing to receive. All those radio waves are still out there. They're the same. You turning on your radio has not changed a thing. But you've got your receiver on and you're receiving it. Exactly. So that actually helped me to release what I had been through all those years in my marriage, was realizing, okay, it was mine to receive. I received that. And I don't know that I would have done that. I could come back and do it any differently than I did or anything like that. I'm not beating myself up over it. But I'm still the one that had my receiver turned on to that frequency to receive that.
Yeah. And then you received it, but you didn't transmit anything. That's what it sounds like to me. You took it.
Yeah. If I gave my opinion, I was in trouble. So
right.
I kept it to myself.
Yeah. But that makes sense. But again, we're past that now.
Yes.
You're divorced. You're in nursing school. Did you find nursing school? Oh, yeah. Because you said that you went to school early. You got a degree in English because you thought that the math and that wasn't your
science.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
my dad was a mathematician. So I thought I was terrible at math.
So when you got into nursing school, did you find it difficult?
I was very good academically in nursing school because I had homeschooled my 6 children for all those years. I got really darn good at math, and I got good at them bringing their textbook to me and saying, "Mom, what does this mean?" And I could just read this paragraph and explain to them what it meant. And I realized, okay, I can read a textbook. I can understand what it says. Therefore, I can understand science because it's written in English that I know how to read. It doesn't take any special talent.
What a revelation.
It was a revelation.
No. But if you think about it, you got repetition because you had to do that 6 times.
Yes. 6 times over. 6 times over. Yes, I actually, the Compass, I think it was called the Compass exam or something like that. You had to take to do prereqs or whatever it was. I scored the highest they had seen in a long time on that math exam because it cuts you off. If you've missed something like 5 in a row, you're done. And so some people go in there and maybe they're taking this test for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then they're done. It increases in difficulty as you go. And I think I was in there for about 2.5 hours. And part of that was me needing to relearn, okay, so what was that? How did that go? And I'm teaching myself again as I'm going through this and just figuring everything out. But yeah, I got a really high score on that math exam.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So you're in nursing school 3 years.
Yeah.
And you graduate, got pinned. So excited. So graduation from nursing school, was your whole family in the audience?
All my kids, yes. I think they were all there for my pinning. I don't think they all made there for my graduation, but yes.
Oh, see? Now that's got to be a huge freaking memory. Do you feel like that's a memory, I would think like a breakthrough memory? You know what I mean? Look at all that you survived, and now you came up on top, and there are your kids. You're getting pinned with your nursing badge. That's just got to bring. Look at you smiling. I could tell. You're not only smiling with your mouth, but you're smiling with your eyes too. So yeah, okay. I don't even have to go further than that.
Yeah, it was good.
That's good. That's good. So where'd you get your first nursing job?
It was at a rehab hospital. And so I was in the ortho and neuro rehab. So orthopedic and brain injury and stroke and things like that. Rehab from those things. And
did you enjoy that?
It was good. Yes. I felt like I was very much cut out for that kind of work. And it was way better than being a CNA, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
My hat is off to all the CNAs and
absolutely.
all the caregivers. I did it. It's a tough job. They don't get paid enough.
And yeah, been around it for a very long time. Yeah, no, definitely. And especially during the pandemic, obviously, definitely hats off to all the hospital workers and stuff. But yeah, you got to a point where they would tell you to go strip beds and clean this and clean that, to you saying, okay, no, you go strip beds and clean hands.
And I think that nurses who have been CNAs make the best nurses, in my opinion, or at least I felt like I was always willing to get in there and do all those things because I had been there and I know what it's like. And I just always wanted my patients to be comfortable and well cared for. And I never felt like that was above or below me.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen it where I've been for a while because I've worked at hospitals and everything else. And yeah, you can tell the difference between like a new grad or someone that came and went to school, got their nursing degree, walked into the hospital versus somebody that had their CNA, then had a patient tech, then became on, because a lot of the nurses, not everyone, a lot of them are good. I'm not just causing dispersions on everyone, but those ones that come in with a little bit of something on their shoulder, they're like, okay, they go to the CNA going, hey, can you go strip that bed? Can you go take that? Can you go take that bedpan out? Can you clean this? And the ones that have been CNAs, it says, hey, can you help me take off these linens? Can you help me clean this up for me with me, please? Definitely a difference.
There is.
Okay. How long did you stay in that unit?
I was there for about 4 years, and then I started getting started on my master's degree, and I felt like I wanted to try something different. And so I worked in the emergency room for about 5 or 6 weeks and realized I was not cut out for that at all. I had my heart set on that, and I had to be told, yes, this isn't going to work for you. But what you can do is go work in a telemetry unit, and that will give you a lot more of this type of experience. And then you can work there, and then you can come back after you've had a year or whatever of experience there. You can come back to the ER. And I really found that I was not particularly good in the telemetry either. It wasn't really I'm such a caregiver. And you need a different kind of mind than what I've been blessed with to do those kinds of jobs. I think probably both the caregiver and the English major side of me was coming out, and I was a good nurse, but you need to find where your niche is. And what I had in my head as my niche really wasn't it. And that was a hard realization for me. But as I was going through my master's degree, I chose an education and leadership route. And so I left telemetry and came back to the same rehab hospital that I had worked at previously as a nursing supervisor because I had that degree then. Nice. Yeah.
How long did you do that?
Only about 18 months. So this is the whole other facet of the story, is that while I was a CNA, I met this man who was a paraplegic, And he was so much the opposite of what I had come out of, just so simple, content, grateful, even as a paraplegic. And we fell in love after he got out of the care center that I had been working in as a CNA. We started dating and we got married in December of 2012. So I married a man in a wheelchair, and he was very strong, healthy, independent. But about a week after we were married, he started getting sick, and he was diagnosed a few weeks later. When I finally dragged him into the doctor, he was diagnosed with end-stage renal disease and had to start on dialysis immediately. And so the 9 years that we were married, he was on dialysis, and the last 7 years of that, I was doing it at home. And he had a lot of severe problems that put him, he was a very complicated patient, and he would have to go to the hospital for months at a time. And he almost died so many times over. And we were living in the Boise area, and we decided that we wanted to live up in the mountains. That had still been my heart, to be out of town and be more in the country. And so at the time that we moved from the city out into the country, I still had it in my head that I was going to be able to do dialysis at home with him. His father came to live with us, so I was going to be able to manage this whole household and have a full-time nursing job. And it just, something was going to give, and that was going to be me. That's when I decided that this little fledgling business that I was trying to start, I would just try to make that go and do that full time. And that's when I left nursing. So That's a long answer to your story, to your question.
Yeah. Yeah. So when did that, all right, this fledgling business, what was it? How did you come up with the idea? When did you come up with it?
One of my sons started a business that was for people like me just wanting to start a business. I probably shouldn't get into all that right now. I don't know. But I was at a conference that he was putting on for his company. And it just really inspired me that I needed to do my own thing, because I had always had this entrepreneurial bent, and my son got that from me. But I had put it all on the back burner a long time before. And I just started thinking, okay, what is something that I could do that encapsulates me and my passions, that I can really help other people. And I went through a whole bunch of ideas, but the thing that really stuck with me is what I ended up calling Be Fit Beyond 50, which is my business name. And just for women over 50, like I was saying earlier, to find their life and find their passion and be set free. My focus became, because as I was going through my master's degree, I kept going toward obesity. I kept wanting to research obesity pandemic in America, because as a nurse and as a CNA and caregiver, this had broken my heart to see these people at the end of their life having a much shorter and very low quality life because of thousands or millions of tiny little choices that they had made for so many years. I really wanted to do something about this. And standing at the bedside as a nurse, handing this person a little cup of pills, here, take your pills. I knew I wasn't really doing anything for them. As much as I cared about them, what I could do for them was so insignificant. And so I wanted to do something that could possibly make a difference in women's lives before they got to that point of being in that bed and they're never going to get out of that bed. So I want them to be set free from emotional eating or the food addictions or all these things, whatever it is that's keeping them stuck in this cycle that leads to obesity and so many other things. Break out of that, transform your thinking, because it's not about the diet. It's not about the exercise. It's here and it's here. It's your identity, your view of yourself. And I mean, that it brought together so many things for me. And that's why I'm here, basically. That's how I got here.
Amazing. So you just happen to, because obviously anybody that takes a look at your pictures, or you're thin, you're not anorexic, you're not obese, you're perfect pretty much. You would think that, so for most people, they're thinking like, oh, I lost 140, and I've got people on the podcast that I lost 140 pounds, and it took me a while. I took several different journeys to get there. So because of all that, I gained all this knowledge. So now I can impart it to other people, which I say, fantastic. Keep it going.
Yes.
You went more of the scientific route because you were learning through academics, and sounds as you were going through that, looking at it in a way. Okay, tell me about it, please.
Yes. So in my 30s, when I was really struggling in my marriage, I allowed my mind to go in a direction that ended up being really detrimental to me. And so one day, driving home from church in the minivan with all the 6 kids buckled in behind and my husband's driving, and I'm feeling this stress and all of these things, I allowed my mind to wander and imagine what it was like, what it would be like to be in a warm, loving relationship and just be loved. And that felt good, all those feelings. And I remember consciously thinking in that moment, nobody will ever know. I can think whatever I want and nobody will ever know. And it feels good. And that probably went on in that delusion for I don't know how long, until I realized I was stuck and I couldn't get out of it. And I came to realize it was an addiction. And the harder that I tried to get out of that, it was I call it an emotional addiction. It was the emotion that I was addicted to, the feeling. And the harder I tried to get out of it, the worse I was so ashamed and felt so helpless because I had this vision, this idea of myself that I was very self-controlled. And all of a sudden I wasn't. And I just could not get out of it. And finally, I had to call a friend and confess to her what was going on, what was happening, and that I was powerless. And her first words to me were, and I was shaking, I'm sure, I don't remember exactly, but it was so hard for me to get these words out. Because we had this facade of being perfect. There's nothing wrong here. And so for me to confess that to her was a big step. And her words to me were, you're human. And I just felt this just relief come over me. And that was my first step out. And it was a very important step. But I learned a lot on my journey out of being addicted. And so fast forward, I have so much compassion that I never would have had for anybody who is caught in an addiction. I can't sit there on my high horse and say, oh, that's so sad. That's so hard that you're addicted. I'm so sorry. And be superior to that in any way. Because I was just as out of control as anybody. It's just mine was easier to hide than a lot of others. And meanwhile, there are so many women living in so much shame. I talk to so many women who they've never told anybody that they're struggling with a food addiction or emotional eating or anything like that. And it can be obvious sometimes, but then we tend to say, oh, I'm big boned. Oh, I don't know why I can't get out. It's my thyroid. It's this or it's that. But they're so ashamed and they're eating in secret and they're covering over so much and they're suffering. They're in a prison. So I can't say, no, it was just academic. And then in my 50s, I hit this very stressful period of my life and I had gained weight after having been very fit in my early 40s, and menopause, nursing school, taking care of a sick husband, all these things, working full time. I gained probably 25, 30 pounds, and I was trying to diet. I kept trying to diet and realizing this is hard, and it wasn't working. I was really trying. I did not like that extra weight hanging around my middle. And I had never thought I would be in that position. And there I was. And I didn't know how to get out of it. And so it's my journey out of the first thing and then my journey out of that extra weight and finding the answers in unexpected places that are not being addressed in the diet industry or just in the normal dialogue of society, that I just really wanted to be able to share what I found, because really it's a path of freedom. It's not a path of having to deprive yourself and exert a whole bunch of willpower and all those things. It's finding a freedom within yourself and a healing from the addiction, and then living your best life. It's not, okay, forevermore, now I have to abstain from all these things that I love, or I'm going to gain all this. No, it's completely different than that. And so I just wanted other people to experience that.
Now you're heading into my territory. When I got into this one company, I joined Toastmasters because I just wanted to do something different, and I had to do a research speech, and I called it Goiba. I was like, Goiba, get off your butt, America. Goyba, get off your butt, America. And 2 years later, I was at a Toastmasters convention, and I basically was going over what you were going over, and of course, including exercise and stuff. And basically giving statistics on how many people are how much time is spent on the couch, how much spent is watching TV. And 2 years later, I was at a conference, a Toastmasters conference, and one of the guys came up, and this was after this was a competition that I had done the Goiba speech. And he goes, you, Goiba. And I was like, all right, it resonates. But you started talking about you got to abstain, or you got to get rid of this stuff, or you've got to diet. And I have always been a proponent to replacing. You don't get rid of it. You just replace it with something that either tastes better and is more nutritious, or just something that's more nutritious. For instance, if people are finding it, they're heavy on starches and they love their mashed potatoes and everything else. And I'm like, mashed cauliflower. It says, make it the same exact way, put a little of this and that. It's a lot less it's a ton less calories, and it tastes just as good, if not better, sometimes, depending. You know what I mean? Little things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, all right, if you have mashed potatoes 3 times a week, twice a week have mashed cauliflower, and the other time have mashed potatoes. And all of a sudden, they've just saved like 3,500 calories a freaking month just by just that one little tiny little choice.
Right.
Which is probably something that you have a million different examples of. But so basically, that's that revelation to you, is that all these women are being stuck just like you. You understood that. Mm-hmm. And you turned it into, you went into the weight loss portion of that and decided to hone in on. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, it just resonated with me so much. And just seeing in my master's program, I could have chosen any number of topics, and yet there were 2 that I really gravitated toward all of the time. Any possible way I could fit in obesity in America or something along those lines, that's what I was going for.
Yeah. Yeah. And you and I have 2 in my other way. And you won't, this is what I always talk about, is that there's always those times people they're obese and then they're like just not fit. They don't feel fit, blah, blah, blah. So they always the one traditional way, right? All right, I need to lose weight, diet, exercise, want to get fit, got to go to the gym, blah, blah, blah. But there's so many different ways to go about that now. And mine always way was, and I'll just give this because that is that I state to find a big giant challenge. Find something that's so far out of your comfort zone. And it doesn't matter how far it is. Let's go crazy and let's say, all right, you got somebody that's 5'4" and 250 pounds, and somewhere in the back of their head that they learned a lot, and go, God, they really thought it would be like to climb Mount Everest, which is doable. So I always say that, and even when I coached group 0 to 5K classes, I'd be like, the first class was like, tell me something you've seen on television or something you heard about that just really resonated with you. You'd always love to try, but because of finances, because you don't feel like you're fit enough, you don't believe in yourself enough, you don't that it's something that's just a pipe dream. And people would come up with these crazy things. And I'm like, there's no reason why you can't do that. You probably can't do it tomorrow, but somewhere down the line, put it out there. And if you want to lose weight and get fit, go after the goal. Don't worry about losing weight and getting fit. Don't even worry about it. Go after the goal. Find the training. Go after the goal. You're going to lose weight and get fit on the way. It's going to be a benefit of going after the goal instead of being the goal.
Yes. It's so true. That's exactly what I teach. Yes.
Great. Yeah. Thank you. Because I can't seem to I get there. The people that take my advice are like very successful and their mindset changes. They believe in themselves. When I've got people that are like 220 pound women, 220 pounds, they've been a nurse all their life, blah, blah, blah. And because of the eating and everything else, and then they realize that they're not really that fit. They're sitting behind a desk a lot of times or in the nursing station. They're not moving around as much as they did. They find themselves gathering stuff. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I can't do this. I can't do that. And I'm like, no, I'm like, pick something you want to do. I'm like, get a coach, get a personal trainer, whatever you need, or do it your own. Do it yourself. There's plenty of freaking information out there. Pick something that really resonates with you, decide to do it, and go after it. Don't put it, and you're going to find these little tiny goals that's going to mark your way on the way there. One of those goals is not to lose weight, and one of those goals is not to be able to bench press 350 pounds. That's not what it is. The goal is, okay, I want to get to Everest. All right, the first thing I got to do is my first goal is Mount Rainier. And Mount Rainier has got, or the not so steep side of Mount Rainier, because Mount Rainier goes up. You're right there. What am I talking? You're the one that you're there. Yeah. So there's one side where you can snake up, and there's another side that
they train for Everest on. Yes.
Exactly. So your first goal is, I want to be able to get up there. And then the second goal is, I want to get up there in a certain amount of time. And the second goal is, all right, if you're in that area, but at any place, if you're in Arizona or whatever, you find that one rock face and you're like, all right, I want to be able to get up a quarter of it. I want to be able to boulder it. I want to be able to do this. Those are your little goals.
Yes.
And that will get you all those other little things that you're thinking about. You'll find weights dropping off. You'll find you're getting fitter. You're finding that your energy is starting to skyrocket. And because you've got to fuel the workouts, you've got to fuel those goals, you're going to be learning about it. Nutrition.
Yeah. You don't want to put junk in your machine. Why would you put bad gas in your beautiful, expensive car?
That's a great analogy. I'm going to start using it. That's fantastic. Yeah. I've not used that. Yeah. And it's in my trailer, but I talk about a woman that was 260 pounds and she was 5'1", and she set her after failing at dieting and little things, and she looked on television, saw Ironman World Championship at Kona and got inspired. So she learned a little bit more. She found out that she lives out here in Florida and Ironman Florida. So she says, I'm going to do that race. And then 18 months later, she's 120 pounds, standing at Panama City Beach in a very small wetsuit, ready to take on Ironman. And it wasn't because she wasn't thinking about carbs or fats or blah, blah, blah.
A little bit. Celery stick instead of
right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. She wasn't thinking about any of that stuff. It's I need so much of this to be able to fuel my workout tomorrow morning. That's a 20-mile bike ride and an hour run. And I need to figure out what fuel do I need in order to get through it? Yeah. So where did you come up with the 5 pillars? Is it pillars? 5 stages?
Yes. It's all just evolved over time. That pretty much encapsulates what I teach, and just something that after talking with somebody on the phone and seeing where they are, the lives that they're living now, it gives them hope that there is a different way. There's something else besides, okay, keto didn't work for me. Now I got to find the next diet. I start so many conversations with women where they're saying, yeah, I haven't found the right diet plan. I need another diet plan because these diet plans haven't worked for me. And then we dive a little deep, I probe, and it's not really the diet plan that's not working. It's the pack of Oreos every night in front of the TV. You can go to every nutritionist and dietitian and doctor and say your diet plan's not working. It's not going to work because you're the one sabotaging it. So those 5 pillars are a way for me to explain very briefly that this is about a transformation. This isn't about finding the next latest and greatest eating plan, because it would be like me in my 30s at that very low point in my life, and somebody just saying, you shouldn't think those thoughts. Just stop thinking those thoughts. I couldn't. And so that's what that's the framework that I'm coming from with these women, where they've got all these people telling them what to do and what not to do. They're not following it. If they could follow the plan, they wouldn't need me. And there are plenty of people that don't need me, and that's great. I'm glad for them that they don't need me, but the ones that do, I'm here for them. And so those 5 pillars that I talk about are just hooks to hang those kind of smaller transformations within the big transformation.
Okay. And so basically you're telling me it's experience. It's what you went through plus nursing plus everything that you've gone through is come up with your 5 shifts. That's what it is.
Yes.
The 5 shifts. Yeah. I have to say that this is, it's a revelation. that there's actually someone out there that's like yourself, that's out there coaching and saying, one, you replacing, going for a goal, stepping out of the mindset that you've got to either do keto or paleo or you got to do intermittent fasting or anything like that. It's something that's a little bit more entwined that you need to be able to manage, turn off, however you want to go about it. I'm not giving away the 5 shifts, so I'm going to leave that alone. But I am going to give you the URL if you guys all want to know it. And I'm going to have it in the show notes. So Lynn's site is befitbeyond50.com. And that's where you can find out all about her and her programs. But if you go to befitbeyond50/webinar/view, you'll get to see her webinar, which I've gone through it. Amazing stuff. So if you want to learn how to get from being stuck from bio dieting and why you're having that relationship with food, check out the webinar and check out these 5 shifts, because I think it's really going to help you out if you're in that position. And a lot of people are. Obviously, we've got a 77% obesity rate in America, which is crazy.
And 80% of Americans start a new diet every year or are on a diet. And if we have that kind of statistic, why do we have 70-some% overweight or obese?
Yeah, and that's nationally, right? We can even dig deeper into 15 to 25 teenagers and then young kids. Oh, I have to tell you, so I live just an hour and a half from Disney World, and I've got a yearly pass, an annual pass. So I'm there quite a bit, and I can't tell you the amount of times that I'm looking around and these kids are like, "Oh, but mommy, I just want to sit down. Can't we just sit down for a little bit?" Oh, but here you are in the most magical place on earth. And what I think is normal is the kid yanking on the hand of the parent. Oh, we got to see this. We got to see that. Oh my God, we got to do this. We got to do that. Now you've got these kids going, can't we just go see a show? Can't we go sit down? For me, when I went to Disney World the first time, no. Oh, we're going to go see a show, honey. No, I don't want to. No, we're going to ride rides. Come on, we got to ride. And I'm like that from the moment we woke at 6 a.m. to 9 o'clock at night. And I'm like, no, I don't want to leave, blah, 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 blah. And these kids are like, can we just go back to the hotel? I'm like, really?
That is
are
sad.
You kidding me?
That is very sad, yes.
But then you look at the parents and you see why. And you're like, oh, okay. So it used to be hold on to the hand, right? And you're like this little kid holding onto the hand. But no, now they're grabbing the hand of their parent who's riding on a scooter. It is, I have to tell you, Lynn, don't get me wrong. It's not like you're seeing like wheelchair scooter gangs walking through and you end up behind them in line. It's not that. It's not that bad. But the number is definitely increased. And it's sad. So if we can get to a certain percentage, at least a small percentage of those people, and sit there and say, let's find out what is the underlying thing, which you cover in the 5 shifts, then we're going to make a dent in that.
Yes. I hope to make a dent. Love to make a dent.
Well,
yes.
You and me both.
Yeah.
So super excited about that. So yeah, and that's my whole thing. Yeah. And that's my model, because my model is by the race. So you're like, somebody wants to lose weight, pick a race. You want to get fitter? Pick a race. Pick an event, pick a race, pick a challenge, which is why this is called life changing. You challenge yourself to get out of a marriage and then make something of yourself, do what you were passionate about doing, and you did it, right? And then you found that maybe that wasn't quite what you thought it was, so you shifted again. And now would you say that you're in a place that you love and care for, and that you're doing things that you're passionate about?
Oh yeah. I drive myself crazy sometimes with my passion. I'm thinking, where does this even come from? I don't even know. Why do I want this so badly? But in a funny way, it's humorous to me to see this in myself. And then I think of that woman, me, however many years ago now, 15, not even that many years ago, who just thought her life was...
So you see that 10 years ago, you thought your life was over. Now, happy, healthy, teaching other people how to be healthy, and it's through service. And that's one of the biggest things that I try to impart on is, okay, once you've hit that goal, what are you going to do with it? You need to
and I'm sure you're trying to wrap this up too. It's not that the Iron Man, that's what I'm passionate about, is Iron Man. And I thought I was just doing that for me. And I'm realizing, no, this is really an inspiration to other people. That it's just now dawning on me in these last few months that because I would keep that quiet. You do you find your thing. My thing's over here. You're probably not going to be interested in that thing, but you do your thing. But in the process of me being so passionate about Ironman and reaching this level of fitness that I have now, I just turned 64 years old, that I started my Ironman journey in my 60s. And now I'm literally going all over the world doing these things. That is inspiring people.
All right.
They don't have to think that they're going to do an Ironman, but it's inspiring them, like you said, to find that spark within themselves of the thing that they want to do, and realize it doesn't matter how old you are or what your starting point is. You find that thing and you go for it.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many people they've started with 5Ks, gone to 10Ks, then halves, then fulls, then ultras. I've got a woman that's been with me for about 5 years who barely could run a mile. Then she got to 5K, 10K, half. Well, now she's getting ready for Western States.
Wow.
You know what I mean? It's found something you loved and just decided somewhere down the line that, hey, you know what? Somewhere down the line, I'm going to do a 135-mile race. And I'm like, okay, that was 3 years ago when she decided she was going to do that. And we're just getting to the point. It doesn't matter how far it is out, as long as you got it in your head and you're going. You know what? We didn't even cover that. When did you start the fitness side of this whole thing? Because now you're a triathlete. You've been a running coach. Tell me a little bit about that. When did that whole thing start?
Originally, it started in my late 30s. It actually started with me coming out of that period of feeling out of control. And we lived up in the mountains, and so everything was either up or down. And all of a sudden, my youngest son was old enough that I could leave him in the care of the older kids. And I had a freedom that I hadn't had before to actually step outside by myself. And I thought, oh, I'm too old to run. My running days are over, but I can go outside by myself and walk. But coming out of that period that I described, I realized that my little baby steps toward running were a metaphor for finding control again, having something that I was in control of. And I started running up these big 2-3 mile long hills and realizing if I can do that, I can control my mind too. I found so much inner strength from becoming a runner in my late 30s, early 40s. And I deliberately crossed it over into the thing that I had been struggling with, to find that inner strength, inner drive, motivation, passion in a positive direction instead of in the negative direction that I had chosen earlier. And I became quite the runner in my early 40s. And I found I I became very strong very quickly because of these massive hills that I was running all the time. I started doing very well in my age group after having been very sedentary for at least 16 years prior. That really was a transformation. And then later 40s to mid 50s, all of that stress and life upheaval, all of those things, I thought it was gone. I thought I had lost that. And I'd put on the weight and I thought, okay, now maybe it really is too late. Maybe I really can't. But I just remembered what that felt like in my early 40s to be so fit and so strong, and finding all of that joy of running. I wanted that back. And I set in my later 50s, I set a goal for myself of a sub 4 hour marathon, which I had done in my early 40s. And I never could get that same passion back again. I never could train at the level that I had done. And maybe it was because I didn't have the resistance of somebody telling me, no, that's unspiritual. And then me deciding I'm going to do this anyway. I don't care what you say. I'm out there. And I didn't have that anymore. I didn't have anything stopping me, but I didn't have any resistance. And I couldn't develop that passion again. I couldn't find it. And then one day when I was 61, I got an email from the Ironman Corporation talking about that they were doing a legacy race, 1 year only, Ironman Coeur d'Alene. They were bringing it back. And that's not far from, it's about a 6-hour drive from where I live. And that thing that you talk about, that I talk about, that little spark ignited inside of me when I read that email. And I thought, that's what I want to do. That will inspire me. That will make me be consistent. And I have to train consistently to be able to do this. That's what I want to do. And it took me a few years to actually complete my first Ironman. And I still haven't done it in less 17 hours.
Doesn't matter. You covered the distance.
I covered the distance. Yes. I was 14 minutes too slow. But anyway, that's what did it for me. And that has never left. That has just continued to grow. And my passion for that sport just keeps getting bigger, getting brighter.
Welcome to the club. It's a bug, let me tell you. I haven't done a full in a while, and I'm about to do a full. But yeah, so I'm excited. So you finished the course of Coeur d'Alene.
On my second try of Coeur d'Alene, I finished. Okay. Yes, the race. Yeah. It was 2020 that I got that email, and so it was 2021 that I attempted. Yeah, I attempted it in 2021, and then I finally completed it 14 minutes after the 17 hours in 2023. But I got an email from the Ironman Corporation congratulating me on my Ironman finish and counting me as an official finisher of.
There you go. Maybe the clock was off. Maybe the clock was off. And you know what? Coeur d'Alene is the reason why they took it away, because it's one of the toughest courses on the circuit by far. So here you are going after an Ironman goal, and you're going after the one in the toughest course, one of the toughest courses on the full Ironman circuit.
Yeah.
So no. More power to you. I got it. You know what I mean? Was it last year or the year before? The Iron Nun. She finished Kona, and she didn't make the cutoff. Nobody cared because she'd done it so many times before. Nobody cared. And she's 96. She came across that finish line at 17:08 or something like that, 17:09, something like that. and they brought her across the finish line. You're a great company. You're in freaking fantastic company. More pod too. So your bike's in your office. So I assume that the training is continuing.
Oh yeah.
So what's on that?
That's my trainer bike. This one is out to pasture. I just use it for training.
I've got one of those too. Yeah, no, I gotcha. What's on your race schedule?
Oh, less than 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, I competed in Ironman, Texas. And I was a very brutal headwind out on the spike. And there were a lot of crashes.
Yep.
And I was coming to the scene. I don't know if it was a crash or somebody just being ill because of the harsh conditions. And I was going the opposite way of where the aid station was, and a fire truck or emergency vehicle had pulled up, and there were paramedics. There was a paramedic standing right by the side of the road, on the shoulder, and I'm just cruising through. They hadn't told anybody to stop or anything. And just as I get up to him, he steps right in front of me without seeing me, without looking at all. And I figure, okay, he's looking northbound because he's expecting all of this traffic to be southbound. He didn't have awareness of the scene, what was really going on here, that there was two-way traffic. And I crashed into him. Fortunately, he was in the full fireman garb. And so he absorbed some of the impact of me hitting him, but amazed that I can be on this podcast and I'm fine now. But I had this very purple eye. My whole side of my face was road rash. I dislocated my finger. I looked down at my finger and it's pointing in the wrong direction. And I snap it back into place there on the scene. And so I actually sprained 2 fingers and I got some abrasions on this arm. And so the medics patched me up. That was at mile 50. They patched me up and I got back on the bike and I completed the bike. I also got a flat tire, unrelated. And I also stopped to help somebody else who was really struggling. And I missed the bike cutoff by 10 minutes. So I completed the 2.4 mile swim and I completed the bike, 112 miles of the bike. And I was not able to keep going for
man. So sorry. That stinks.
It stung, but I was proud of myself for getting back on that bike and completing that course. So
you took the words right out of my mouth. I'm proud of you. Because I got to tell you, because there's a lot of people that would not have done that. Most people would have crashed, dislocated a finger, and said, "Okay, now there's an ambulance right there. Thank God." So,
here's what I have to say about this. I used to be a master excuse maker. I would pull any excuse out of the book not to have to do the hard thing because I was so afraid of failure, and that continued into my adulthood a lot when I've gradually grown out of that. But somewhere along the line, it was when I really started running in my 40s, I realized I had such a passion for it. I wanted to run so badly that what I would have taken as an excuse to not run, it was more, okay, how can I do this? How can I figure this out that I can still run in this terrible weather? And I realized, okay, that was a big shift for me. And it has carried over now. And so being splatted there on the pavement, okay, is my race over or can I keep doing this? And it's so natural now for me to think in those terms that I don't even think about it. If I'm able to keep going, I'm going to keep going because I'm very invested in this. So we'll see how far. We'll just see how far I can get.
100% agree, and that's fantastic. No, I'm proud of you. Most people would not have gotten up. So I am proud of you for doing that. As a fellow Iron person, I am. Yeah, that's amazing. But that's great. So 2 weeks. So that you were training for Ironman Texas. Unfortunately, you came across some conditions that weren't going to allow you to finish that. So do you have something? Do you have something in your mind and in your brain that you want to do going forward?
Well, I really, I don't know if it's going to happen, but I really wanted to qualify for the World Championships in Nice this year for the women. And that's a long story, but it's easy for women now. This is one of the rare times in the history of women's athletics that it pays to be female, because it's very easy to, I shouldn't say it's very easy, but to get into the World Championships as a female, it's much easier than as a male at this point in history. And so I was counting on being able to finish Ironman Texas to have my first sub 17-hour finish and to be able to claim a spot at the World Championship in Nice. And so that hope was thwarted. And my coach is saying, there's Ironman 70.3, Coeur d'Alene. There are ways to still qualify for the full distance championship if you do that race.
Yeah, because it's so hard. That's what I'm saying. Because it's so hard. They're like, oh, if you could do the 70.3 at this level, we'll send you to do the full World Championship.
Yeah. Yes. And part of it is they need warm bodies to fill that race, because there aren't that many women in Ironman and not that many that are keen on going to France for the World Championship. Kona is the holy grail, and they're going to wait the opposite year and go to Kona instead of going to Nice.
Yeah, I can see why that's going on. I don't know why. Nice is France, really? But yeah,
it works.
I don't know if I agreed. I do not know if I agreed with that move of them doing opposite on opposite. They've been doing Kona, both the men and the women, both age group and pro at the same time for decades. And they shifted this because of the pandemic. Let's get less people out there.
No, actually, they wanted to do a men's race and a women's race. And I appreciate that, because it gives women, it opens the door of opportunity for women, and I like that. But they did it 1 year, 2 separate races. It wasn't a full women's race. It was still more men than women on one day and all men on the other day. But Kona, or the island of Hawaii, could not handle double the influx, because you've got double the participants, double the support people. Even though it's on 2 separate days, they didn't have the infrastructure to be able to handle that many people coming in, double the people. And so then they decided at that point that they needed to alternate years.
Yeah. But the idea, because the idea actually stemmed from COVID, just so you know. The idea was because they went with the World Championships for 70.3, because that they could sustain. So that was successful. Then they decided that, okay, maybe we could do the same thing with the World Championships per international, because they had done that. They had put age group women and pro women on Saturday, and then they put age group guys and pro guys on Sunday for the World Championships. And it was amazing. And the viewership shot through for both days. You know what I mean? So they were like, whoa, okay, this is successful. It just stemmed from there. But that Ironman's owned by the World Triathlon Corporation, and the headquarters is down the street.
Ah, okay.
from here.
You've got an in.
Yeah.
You've got the...
Yeah. It's down the street. Yeah. So Andrew Messick, I've run with him a few times. He's a pretty good guy. But great. But no, there's some political stuff around Ironman I'm not so crazy about, but leave that alone. But I think that's one of the best things that they've ever done is have separate women's and men's races for those championship races, because they're so exciting. They're so exciting when it's just that. You're not like, the coverage isn't bouncing back from, okay, let's go look at the women, and let's go look at the guys. What's going on over here?
Yeah, I've seen the YouTube videos of those, the coverage of those races, and it's so heavily weighted toward the pro men.
Yeah.
It was back in the day.
Exactly. No, still is. For like Boston, if you watch the Boston Marathon, it's the same thing. Of course, it's only a couple hours versus 8. But yeah, it was that way. But I'm from Chicago, so any excuse I get to go back to Chicago, I'm excited for. So for the longest time, I just kept doing the marathon. And for the longest time, until the year before the pandemic, the Kona would be on Saturday, and Sunday would be the Chicago Marathon.
Oh, okay.
But literally, I'd sit in my hotel room, and I'd get up in the morning, have good breakfast, blah, 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 go out, do a 2-mile run, shake it out, do my stretches, blah, blah, blah. And then I know I have to put my feet up for the rest of the day. That's what I would do. Laptop sits on my lap. I'm watching it was like the ultimate weekend. Freaking get inspired as all heck by watching Kona the day before, getting up at dark 30, having breakfast, going down and running a marathon.
Oh, it's inspiring. Yes.
Oh, outstanding weekend. Love it. Just absolutely just crazy about it. But yeah. But anyways, all right. I hope you find another one. I hope you find another race. And if you can do the 70.3, I hope you do.
Yes. And I will throw in that I did qualify for the 70.3 World Championship in New Zealand this December. So I am doing that.
Nice. Oh, I'll let you. You know what? My cousin's running that.
Really?
Put you two together. Yeah. She's got her into the sport, and she's like the only athletic person in our family, like truly athletic person in her family. And she's 44 now. And it was like 6 years ago, she got heavily into it. Like she really got started, and she went to World Championship 70.3 her first year. I was like, I've been fighting for this thing. And she walks in, I think it was either her first or her second 70.3, and she qualifies and goes to Utah.
Before they made it super easy, back when it was hard.
Yeah.
For women to qualify.
It just starts going out. It was crazy. We did North Carolina together, and that was fun. It was a blast. We did it twice together. Of course, one time I DNF'd, but yeah, 2 flats on the bike. Yeah. I had a 38. And a 44. And of course, I only carry 1 tube. So I'm trying to flag a sag, blah, blah, blah. I ended up running back 3.5 miles to a gas station barefoot.
Oh, no.
Trying to find something. It was very tough. So at that point,
I feel your pain.
Yeah. I moved to tubeless. So I'm like, screw this. I'm going to go tubeless and forget this. So with tubeless, at least, it's got to be a gash. It's got to be a gash in the thing. Otherwise, it'll seal itself. So I'm like, well, I'm going to go tubeless and forget it. And if it's tubeless and it does have a gash, then you can put a tube in it if you really have to. So I'm like, all right, it still take a little bit long to get it because you got to unseal everything, but on the whole, but I'm excited about it. But anyway, so listen, everybody, we're going to wrap this up. Be Fit Beyond 50 and .com and befitbeyond50.com/webinar/view. All those will be in the show notes. And is there another way for people to get a hold of you, Lynn, if they want to ask some questions or talk to you about your programs?
Yes, I think the best way, if you watch the webinar, you can actually schedule a call with me. But also there's Lynn, Lyn, at befitbeyond50.com. And I just want to add 50 is spelled out. Don't use the numbers because I'm not a numbers person. I'm a word person, actually.
And are you active on Facebook or Instagram?
Yes, I'm there. Lynn Weimar on Facebook. You can find me there. There are not too many Lynn Weimars out there. Yeah.
And I will have all those links in the show notes. So please go ahead and check that out. So yeah. So again, befitbeyond50.com and check out.
Thank you so much.
No,
thanks for letting me tell my story. That was so much fun.
Yes. I don't know if it was fun, if it's what you call it, but it definitely was. It was inspiring the way you came out of it. I think it's gonna show people that they can do the same. So I'm very excited about this. So anyway, you have yourself a great one. And being that today is May 8th, 2024, I do keep things evergreen, but just for this version, it's May 8th. So I'm going to tell Lynn to have a great Mother's Day this weekend because she has 6 kids.
6 kids.
And 6 kids. For the rest of it, I will see you in the next thing. Thanks. Well, that wraps up another episode of Life-Changing Challengers. I'm your host, Brad Minus, saying thank you for joining us on this journey of transformation. If today's stories inspired you, please take a moment to review, share, and follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Your support helps us reach more listeners and create an even bigger impact. Remember, every challenge is a chance to grow. Until next time, keep pushing, keep challenging, and never stop pursuing your extraordinary.